Hey YouTube, what's going on? My name is Zora. Welcome back to another video. In this video today I'm going to be talking about how to obtain the Fell Werebear appearance for Guardian Druids from the Mage Tower in 10.0.5. The Mage Tower was removed at the end of Legion, though we did see it reintroduced to the game in Shadowlands Season 4. With the reintroduction of the Mage Tower, we did see new cosmetic rewards in the form of transmog sets. These were the 2 Mysticaris mythic sets but recolored, and you got the teamwork set for completing any specs challenge for your class. For Druid specifically, they also obtained the Fell Werebear appearance for completing the Guardian challenge, and yes, if you complete the Guardian challenge you do get the teamwork set as well. And finally, alongside the Mage Tower's transmog sets and bear form appearance, you can also get a few achievements and a mount. For completing any challenge, you will receive a base achievement for completing the Mage Tower. If you then do all 7 challenges available within the Mage Tower between different specs, you will get a mount called the Soaring Spell Tome. And finally, if you do all 36 specs challenges, you will get a feat of strength achievement. In this video, however, I'm only going to be talking about how to complete the Guardian Druid encounter. Since the Mage Tower reopened on Wednesday, I have killed the boss multiple times, and during these kills I tested out different talents, gear and consumables, and I'm going to be talking about which I believe are best. I'm also going to be breaking down the encounter phase by phase, talking about all abilities and mechanics, how to deal with them, and also show you my POV of how I played the fight. So the first thing I'd like to go over is gear and consumables for the Mage Tower. The first attempt I did of the Mage Tower on Wednesday, I didn't realise you were now scaled to 120 eye level, so I opted to put on an old Timewalking set, and a lot of my pieces were actually lower, so they didn't scale up. So just make sure that all of your pieces are a minimum of 120 eye level when entering. You have a few good options in terms of weapons and old items, things like the Gavel if you had access to it from the Season 4 Shadowlands vendors, Mechagon 2 sets, the Cobalt Ring, Quarter Stars Ring, they're all really good. Any item that's 120 eye level or higher that has a good proc effect, or sockets are definitely worth farming if you want that little extra edge. In terms of consumables, you've got some great options here too. A lot of the old world consumables from past expansions do work in the Mage Tower and are actually really prominent. I opted to run a Veiled Augment rune from Shadowlands. They're pretty cheap on AH and the extra main stat's quite nice. I also used a Fated Fortune cookie. This is main stat food from the current expansion. I also used Glacial Fury from the current expansion. Having a flask that's a damage proc is very nice, and it did a lot of my breakdown. And lastly, for my potion, I used Potion of Unbridled Fury. I know lots of Mage Tower guides will recommend this potion, and for good reason. It's very strong, quite overtuned if I'm honest, and will do a lot of your DPS. Okay guys, the last thing to talk about before jumping into the VOD review is my talent setup. As I said at the start of the video, I have completed the Mage Tower a few times now, and I did try different talents. In my opinion, this is what I would recommend. So on the left hand side we have the Druid tree here. Now the talent setup is pretty standard, though I have shuffled a few points around. In a raid setting you'd normally have sort of Innovate taken, but I opted to take that out as I don't need it. I chose to put 1 point in Rip and 1 point in Feline Swiftness. The 8% movement speed in my opinion came in very handy in phase 2 specifically. When the boss leaps on you or when the beams knock you back, having that 8% to get through them is really nice. The second point that I had spare, I put in Well Honed Instincts. The free Frenzied Regen is really helpful in my opinion. The CCs that I chose to run were Typhoon and Incap. In my opinion, these are a hard lock-in for the Mage Tower. Anybody trying the Guardian challenge, in my opinion, should run these 2 talents. Incap, Roar and Typhoon are very handy. Typhoon to deal with the boss in phase 1. You can knock his Drain Life cast, or if you've built up an extra stack that you didn't mean to take, you can knock him away to get out faster before the next one goes off. Incap Roar as well is very handy. You can roar the boss in phase 1, though typically you're saving Incap Roar for the 4 small adds that spawn. This is pretty much your only stop 4 adds at once, other than taking an orb, or other than things like racial stuns like War Stomp for example. The adds can't be Typhoon to stop the cast. It knocks him away, but the cast still remains, so Incap Roar in my opinion is a hard take purely for those adds. There are arguments to be made for Mass Entanglement and Vortex, but personally I don't feel like you need them. The other talent to talk about, Astral Influence, the 3 yard range on your abilities, again it's a hard lock-in. This allows you to stand outside of the circle and thrash the boss in phase 1. It's so important and really handy, and I would 100% recommend every bear takes this talent. This was something that you used to do in Legion, where you could actually stand outside of the circle for the whole of phase 1 and never take stacks. It's not that good anymore, but it is still very handy. It's basically the difference between you running out to reset and your thrash falling off versus you running out to reset and being able to stand right on the edge of that line line and just use a Thrash to maintain your stacks on the boss. You will gain a lot of DPS from taking this talent purely for that reason, so I would definitely recommend taking Astral Influence. Moving on to the Guardian side then, the left side is more physical, the right side is more Moonfire arcane damage based, and I opted to go for that. The reason being is Moonfire is about 30 to 40% of your breakdown. If you've got a slower kill or a slower phase 1 specifically, it's going to be even more than that. Moonfire is your absolute best friend in this challenge. It's going to be really prominent in your breakdown, and you want to buff it as much as possible. In terms of options or things that you can change, one of them would be double SI. If you've got a very quick kill in P2 and you're only taking 2 or maybe 3 annihilates, double SI is nice but not mandatory, and you can take after the wildfire. Though in my opinion, with the HP reduction in phase 1, after the wildfire loses some benefit, so I opted to run double SI just in case there was a moment where I needed it. If you're taking 4 annihilates in phase 2 and you've got a slower kill time, I would say double SI is a mandatory pick. You're not really going to be able to live those high annihilates like stack 4, maybe stack 5 if you get there without double SI. Moving down the tree then, the only talent that I think you could really pick differently from the bottom half of the tree is the removal of Moonless Night for the addition of Pulverize. If you are taking higher stacks, like I said, with a slower kill time in phase 2, Pulverize is a great tool to negate some of those big hits and just really survive a bit longer in the last phase, but again, that's only for a really slow kill time, though I wouldn't recommend it over Moonless Night if you're comfortable doing your DPS rotation. Moonless Night for me on average did about 3 or 4% of my breakdown in both phases. It's not a massive amount of damage, but it is something, and every little helps. And the last 2 talents I want to talk about here are Rage of the Sleeper and the Incarn CDR. So Rage of the Sleeper first, having that DR and that damage buff is really nice, but additionally the Reflect is really good for the small lads, especially in phase 1. You can stand in the boss circle in phase 1, you can reflect, and it deals a lot of damage back at the minions, so that's definitely something useful from Rage of the Sleeper, and I would 100% always take it. Same thing with the Ursox Guidance cooldown reduction for Incarnation. Incarnation being a 3-minute cooldown baseline is quite long for the Mage Tower, and in my Mage Tower I barely got a second Incarn. I Incarn straight away on pull. I got my second Incarn at about 2 or 3% in the last phase on Cruel, so I didn't really get a second one, and that's with Incarn CDR. A normal slower kill, if you're not playing so heavily for DPS, you're going to have a slightly longer phase 1, I presume. That's going to be perfect. You're going to get Incarn around 10% on the boss with the CDR. If you don't take the Incarn CDR, most people are going to miss their second Incarn, or they're going to have to not Incarn in phase 1. There are some druids out there that don't like the Incarn cooldown reduction, but in my opinion, especially for the Mage Tower, it's a hard slam. I would 100% recommend taking it. So yeah guys, these are the talents that I used for the Mage Tower, and these are the talents that I would recommend. As I said, I have tried multiple setups and this felt best for me. I will leave a Wowhead talent calculator link in the description box with these talents so you can copy them directly into your own game. But for now, I'll just jump into the VOD review. Okay guys, I've got the VOD open now. I'm going to watch the recording back and do a full review of how I played the fight. Just bear in mind this is going to be less edited than the rest of the video, sort of a live commentary and live update. First thing I do when I go into the challenge every single time, I mark Velen, and I mark Bloodform with a skull and a cross just so I know where they are on the map. Here's me showing the gear that I ran on the kill. This was shown in the earlier stages of the video, so not important, but here it is again. They're doing their RP right now. So phase 1, Inquisitive Varus spawns. That's this mob here. He's got 89,000 health. He's basically just a burn down. Now he's going to have a big circle around him. That reduces your max HP, and the game is basically how much damage can you do while the buff stacks up, because you're going to have to walk out and reset this buff. So my opener here, I want to save Heart of the Wild. I want to save my potion. It shows 0 because I was using an old potion that my weak aura wasn't set up for, but I do have some. So I'm saving potion, I'm saving Heart of the Wild, and I'm saving my drums, which are next to my DPS meter but hidden. I'm saving all of those for the last phase to burn Cruel. But I do use a Bark Skin, I use Incarn, I use my Whetstone, and I use Rage of the Sleeper on the pool, and just burn the boss as much as possible. So I'm popping my cooldowns here. I Thrash. I press Moonfire because I don't get an immediate GG proc, and I just really want the damage pumping on the boss. With the new rotation as well, with Thrash and Mangle being 50% CD rather than 100 now, you can freely weave in that Moonfire without too much repercussion. Oh yeah, and I'm saving Gavel for the last phase as well. So I've got my 3 Thrash stacks now, so as you can see there's a big circle around Varus. You're gaining a debuff here, it looks like a Death and Decay icon. This is reducing my max HP. At the start of the challenge I had 14k, and that was before my Incarn even, and now I've got 9k. I was typically taking 6 or 7 stacks on the pool, just because I know I'm in Incarn with that HP increase, my Frenzied Regen's got a shorter cooldown, and I just really want to pump the boss as much as possible in my cooldowns. the Tormented Eye, or the Tormenting Eye that you see behind the boss here. This eye will basically shoot a beam at the tank. If you're facing away when the cast ends, it will knock you back. You want to always be facing the eyes to negate that. If you're facing them, it won't knock you. The other thing to talk about with the eyes is the fact that they're immune to physical damage and they only take damage from magic. That basically means that Moonfire, as I said earlier, is basically your best friend on this fight. You want to Moonfire the eyes as soon as they spawn. So here I kick the Drain Life. I get my 5th stack, and what I'm actually doing here is I'm waiting for the cast to go off and I'm charging it to get out of the circle on my 6th stack. If I would have been a second later, I would have got a 7th stack, but I didn't because I charged the ad to get out. I know that the ads are spawning, I waited to kick the Drain Soul. Now, at the start of the video when I was talking about, or at the end of the video actually, when I was talking about talents, I talked about the fact that with the increased range from Guardian Druid, you can stand right on the circle and reapply Thrash. So my Thrash just fell off, or was falling off there. You can stand right on the circle here. If you jump and Thrash midair, you will reapply. I swipe this one, I jump, I Thrash, it reapplies. I'm getting some Moonfires out, I'm making sure to Moonfire the Eye. I'm Moonfiring the Horrors as well to pick them up. I'm waiting for my stacks to fall off, and then I'm going back in when these die. Now the Never Horrors cast Neverstorm. This is a big AoE. It can be kicked, it can be interrupted with in-cap Roar, and it can be interrupted by taking an Orb. You cannot Typhoon this cast. If you Typhoon them, the Horrors do get knocked back, but it will not interrupt the Neverstorm, so you've got to be prepared every single time to either in-cap Roar or take an Orb. You can also use things like War Stomp. If you're a High Mountain, you can Bull Rush it as well. If you're a Cold Tyrant, you can Haymaker one individual ad if you need to for whatever reason. You shouldn't do. I'm a Night Elf again, my favourite race. I just went back, so my Shadow Mount's pretty useless in here, but that's fine. I don't mind that. Last one dies to the Moonfire. I've got Moonfire on the eye at the top. That dies too. My stacks are gone, so I charge back in and I carry on DPSing. Drain Life happens now, I Typhoon it away, I reapply that Thrash before moving out. Now the boss summons Infernals. The more HP they have, the bigger they are in size, and when they reach you, they're going to basically slam the floor and it's going to be a frontal knockback. If you're stood in it, you're going to go for miles, and the amount you're knocked back is increased based on the size and HP. The lower the HP, the smaller the knockback. Now the thing about the Infernals to note is they do respawn, so when you kill them they do respawn after a few seconds, but it's not immediate, so you can just keep a Moonfire on them, let them tick down. I charged to kick him and my stacks fell off. Now I also talked about at the start of the video how Rage of the Sleeper does a lot of damage to these ads, and you're going to see that here. I in-cap Roar to stop that Mind Rend. And I use Rage of the Sleeper while I was in that circle, and a lot of damage is being reflected on the ads, and it basically one-shots them. Really good way to deal with them. I reapply the Thrash by jumping. I'm running and kick. And here actually, so I've killed the Eye, so I know that the Infernals are dead. The Eye's going to die to my Moonfire. I've got double Orb, I'm pretty healthy. I want as much Incarn CDR as possible. I also want to make sure that my stacks from the circle are falling off before Cruel spawns, so I'm opting to move out at 3 stacks here. I've done quite a lot of damage to Varus already, it's been a pretty quick phase 1. I Moonfire that ad just to finish it, I'm jumping, making sure I'm thrashing again just to reapply. The ads do unfortunately spawn right as I phase, which is a bit unfortunate, but whatever. Now as this was my first pull, I actually didn't have my Gavel Bound. It's normally on my Trinket 2 placement if I'm using one on use, which I was, but I didn't have it bound, so I had to actually manually click that, but that's whatever. So here I slam a Gavel, I slam Heart of the Wild, and I slam my drums, which you'll see me press in a minute. I kill the soul, I get the buff, and I drums. So I've got everything rolling here. So I've got a Gavel buff, Heart of the Wild, and drums. The Neverstorm happens, I'm waiting, I'm making sure to not GCD lock myself. I roar. That also roars the Annihilate cast. I do have a bark up, but it's whatever. My bark stays. I renewal and I frenzy this one. And bark with my gear plus renewal and frenzy is fine. And as I said, a lot of my gear was actually below the 120 eye level, although a lot of it was also optimized, so depends how you look at it. That's an unfortunate knock. I was not really paying attention, but you have charge anyway, so it's fine. If you do get knocked, you can charge back to the boss. You can also use kick, but you are going to want to save kick. Something I actually don't think I even mentioned. If I go back a little bit here. So the combination from Cruel is essentially 3 abilities. I was focused on my damage rotation as always. So the first ability, the boss is going to leap to you and he's going to put a circle on the floor. This circle does quite high ticking fire damage, but it also slows you. So you're going to want to get out as quickly as possible. You can use things like Roar to negate this if you really, really need to in a tight situation. And that's also why, as I said in the talent review, Feline Swiftness is really prominent for this. Having that movement speed to get out of there as quickly as possible is quite nice. As soon as he's done that circle, he's going to cast Annihilate, which is the tank buster. Every Annihilate increases the next Annihilate's damage taken by 100%, so they stack up quite significantly. The first one's not too bad, as I said, but they do get quite hefty in the end. As soon as the Annihilate's cast, he casts Twisted Reflection. This is just a pretty simple interrupt. If you don't interrupt it, he's going to give you a debuff, which means when you damage Cruel, you're also healing him. This debuff, though, can be cleared by running for a circle if you ever do miss an interrupt. But talking about the interrupt, when I get knocked here, if you do ever have an opportunity where you're going to get knocked off for whatever reason, you don't have World Charge, you can use Kick to get back to the boss as well. I have done that a few times on a few pulls. Another way you can get back to the main platform as well is the Goblin Glider. Just bear in mind you're going to need individual Goblin Glider kits in your bag if you're using the Legendary Cloak from last expansion from BFA. If you're wearing the BFA cloak like I was, you can't actually put a Goblin Glider on the cloak, and I did have one wipe where I tried the Goblin Glider and realised it wasn't on my cloak because I was wearing the Legendary, as that cloak has an on-use effect. These ads spawn here. I want Rage of the Sleeper for them. I want the Trinket for them. I've got 3 orbs up. I think why not? I just take an orb here. It gives me a few extra seconds just to dodge these lines, just to situate myself for the ads and get ready for them. And these lines are the last thing to really mention in this phase. They basically go from side to side in the room, and when you're caught in them, they do push you back. Just dodge them. It's pretty simple. The boss leaps to me here. I pop Whetstone as soon as the ads are stacked up. I use Rage of the Sleeper. It's quite big damn. I do actually lock myself on the Roar, but luckily it doesn't matter. My Rage plus the Trinket does so much damage to them anyway. I do choose to take an orb just in case one of them lived, but they died. For this second Annihilate here, you can see I use an SI. My Bark wasn't quite off cooldown, but is absolutely fine. Boss is on 4% here. I dodge the lines, and at 3% my Incarn comes up. Now again, this was quite a quick kill. I only got 2 stacks. 2 waves of ads, or maybe 3 waves of ads. 2 stacks from the boss. I kill these horrors off just in case. These horrors, as well, one thing to mention, they do a lot of NPC damage. If the cast goes off on top of an NPC, it's game over straight away. So do not ever tank them on the NPCs. But yeah, that's it. That was the full pull. Now I do show the breakdown here. Now you can see in the breakdown, Potion of Unbridled Fury did 16k damage. Gavel did 16k damage. Now to get 30k or 31k in this case, maybe 32k out of 2 essentially sort of gimmicky procs, that's kind of insane. To be able to burn Cruel for around 30% of his HP from 2 procs that, you know, you can go and fairly, well, maybe not the Gavel, but Potion of Unbridled Fury is from the AH, and a lot of people do have access to the Gavel from Season 4 Shadowlands. Yeah, really handy. You can also see the Slicing Maelstrom damage from my Trinket that did quite a lot. Obviously it is hitting ads though. And yeah, that's basically the Mage Tower complete. And this was the very first pull that I did on the Wednesday. And yeah, there were a few things that I did wrong here and there. Now, this isn't actually a kill, but I am also going to open another VOD here, and I'm going to show a pull where I got the boss to 2% when I was basically naked. So I'll open that now. Okay guys, so I've got a second point of view open here, a second recording that I did. I did about 20 pulls earlier, just messing around with no gear. You can see here that I took all of my gear off other than rings, trinkets, weapon and flaring cowl to proc the ring. I have no neck, shoulders, cloak, chest, braces, boots, legs, belt or gloves, and I was quite low eye level for this. In comparison to the 14k HP I had last time, I think I had around 8 or 9k when I entered bear form. Okay, so I had 7.9k versus 14k in the first challenge, and it is a much longer attempt. and I'll talk again about the mechanics, just go over them one more time. This would have been a kill. I severely messed up my cooldown management in the last phase, which you'll see in a minute. This pull I'm actually doing differently. Because my phase 1 is so long, I opt to use Heart of the Wild plus a potion on pull, but I didn't use Unbridled Fury. This attempt was purely seeing, you know, how easy / how hard is it without any cheese gear. So I was using full max level consumables. This is just an agility potion from the current expansion, or like a main stat potion. So I'm just nuking him on pull. I do get him a bit, well, it's around the same HP. It's a little bit lower, but it's because I'm using more cooldowns. The only thing that I save really is drums. Doing the jump tech again, making sure that I'm reapplying that fresh. The ice spawn's miles away, so I don't actually moonfire it. Now, because of my low gear, I had to run the decoration from the first boss. The absorb was quite nice, but obviously dealing with these adds is a lot more difficult. I'm at 5 stacks, I'm running out here. The decoration's up on me. I roar the adds plus the boss, and I get my moonfire up. Now here is a bit awkward because my stacks don't reset. Typhoon's coming off in 2 seconds. The boss is casting his Drain Life ability, and I can't kick because my stacks haven't reset. So I have to just gamble here and take the orb. He does get 1 tick of the heal off, but it's nothing major. Killing the horrors off, I'm a bit skeptical because they are stood right on top of Varen. I know they've got a cast time, but just in case I wanted to move them away. And in the moment, I just managed to get my Thrash back up with that charge, or that kick. I know I've got Typhon ready for the next one. Infernal's dying to my Moonfire here. Another Ice Spawn's in the back that I'm going to run a Moonfire soon. I finish the Infernal off first. I Typhoon the boss. And I spin just in time for that Staring Eye cast. Jumping to reapply my Thrash. I charge in and kick when my stacks fall off. And this one I've got Rage of the Sleeper for, so this one's quite a big damage moment. Nowhere near as good when I have no gear on, but you can see the difference in HP using Rage of the Sleeper to kill those adds off. Got 5 stacks again. He casts his Drain Life ability. I actually get knocked here back into it, which is very unfortunate. So I opt to just kick and then take an orb to stop his casts. I managed to get my refreshers up again just in the nick of time, and my stacks fall off right before this Mind Rend. So very lucky sequence there. And then charge from the Eye Knock. Yeah. One thing goes wrong and it's very easy in the Mage Tower to get quite flustered about things. Here I bark, but I still opt to take the orb just to interrupt. Quite a lot's going on now, and you can already see the difference. When the phases take longer, it's much, much easier to get overwhelmed and almost panicked. Jumping to reapply my Thrash as it did fall off. Just opting to kill those Infernals. I'm trying to essentially recover here. I also want to make sure that my Incarn's back up for the next phase. I charge and then kick. My Incarn's looking good. The Infernal dies. The eyes despawn when you phase, if they're still active. Now here I Incarn. I make sure now with the change to put up 1 Thrash just before I Incarn so I can Thrash into Thrash to get 2 up straight away. I drums here. I use Rage of the Sleeper. I've got Incarn rolling. The first Annihilate is fine with Incarn and Rage of the Sleeper. You've got that HP increase, and as I said earlier, the first one doesn't do that much damage to you. The adds are spawning now. I'm really cautious, so I'm just standing on top of that orb. So here I actually used a lot of buttons in a basically fit of panic because I was so slow moving out of this. I don't know why I didn't roar. I think I was just flustered coming out of P1 because I'd had a few attempts and that was just such a messy P1. And it's sad really because I use Bark Skin plus my Decoration of Flame, and that puts my Whetstone on cooldown so I don't get a Whetstone for a while, and then I get knocked by the ad. I should have just literally roared into this orb and recovered, but hindsight I guess. I charge back and it's fine. I use the orb to stop the Annihilate here, just give myself a bit of leeway, and I still have the double SI charge, so I'm still thinking things are looking good. I SI and Frenzy that second hit. I also use a health pot here, which just about saves me. And I'm doing an awful job of managing my Tooth and Claw stacks. Get knocked for a 3rd time, and I roar, and I charge, sorry. I take the orb here, and that buys me some time to kill the adds off. I get leapt to again. I roar the ad cast, and this is the saddest moment. So I stop the first Annihilate cast, and I want to get Rage of the Sleeper back. And I'm thinking, boss is on 7%, things are looking good. I've just stopped the Annihilate cast. I'm 4 HP. I've got the Tooth and Claw proc and an active one, and I've got Rage to Iron Fur. I've got Bark plus Rage plus Survival Instinct. And what do? I don't press SI. Don't, you know, I can lead by, or, you know, don't follow my example too much, because obviously I can't be that good if I'm failing this. But I do die on 4% HP with an SI available. And if I would have SI'd this hit, the challenge would have been over. I did check my death log afterwards, and I was spamming SI, so I was pretty confused as to why it didn't go off, but it's my bad. You know, it happens. You know, even if I would have been fully topped, I might have lived. It was a 3k overkill, who knows. But yeah, the SI definitely would have saved me from this tank hit. And the minions run to Velen, and they start casting in a second, and I believe the boss is on just below 3%. Okay, 3.2. But yeah, that would have 100% been a naked kill had I used SI properly. But I am going to try and record and upload a full naked POV to YouTube at some point anyway, just because I think it's a fun challenge to do. Not that this was fully naked, as I did have a few gear pieces on, but yeah. So yeah guys, that is it for this video. Thank you all so much for watching. Hopefully the information provided in this video can help at least one person get their Mage Tower skin, and good luck to all of the Guardian Druids out there that are working on the Mage Tower right now. If you do have any more questions, please drop them in the comments below, or you can PM me on Discord. It's Zora #1234. Check out the links in the description, and yeah, I will see you in the next one.